By all outward appearances, Terrence Yakey had everything to live for in the spring of 1996. A respected 7-year veteran of the Oklahoma City Police Department, Terrence Yakey had earned awards, accolades, and honors for his work in the aftermath of the Oklahoma City bombing on April 19, 1995, where he worked tirelessly in the rubble and the debris for over 3.5 hours, dragging 8 people from the building that day, saving their lives. In November of 1995, he had been promoted to the position of sergeant in the Oklahoma City Police Department. He had received the key to the city of El Reno, Oklahoma, for his heroism in the aftermath of the OKC bombing. And he was just getting ready to receive a Medal of Valor for his actions that day. He had recently reconciled with his ex-wife, Tanya, and he was getting ready to move to Dallas, Texas, to begin work for the FBI. And yet, he was under intense persecution from the Oklahoma City Police Department itself for his refusal to confirm the official story of the Oklahoma City bombing. You see, Terrence Yakey saw something in those moments after the bombing, something that disturbed him enough to cause him to stand up against the Oklahoma City Police Department that he had spent 7 years serving. He knew, and he repeatedly attempted to tell his superiors, that the bombing did not happen the way that the public was told that it happened. After numerous private investigators produced irrefutable evidence of multiple explosions, unexploded bombs being hauled away after the fact, and the complete and total incapability of an ammonium nitrate fuel oil bomb to cause the kind of devastation seen in downtown Oklahoma City, a giant government cover-up became obvious. Did he overhear a strange conversation from some of the many ATF agents who were on the scene sooner than they should have been? He called his wife that morning crying. The big old teddy bear of a guy was crying and saying repeatedly, "It's not true. It's not what they are saying. It didn't happen that way." On May 11th, the following year, he was scheduled to receive the Medal of Valor from the Oklahoma City Police Department. He never got it. He was murdered on May 8th, 1996 in the country, 2.5 miles west of the El Reno Penitentiary. In an interview with Terry's widow, Tanya Yakey revealed that her husband had been very upset by something he had seen under the daycare center on April 19th. He had wanted to go back and photograph it, but the officials would not let him onto the site again. Mrs. Yakey also said that Terry was supposed to be decorated for his work as a rescue person, but didn't want to be put in the limelight. Terry felt the investigation was fraudulent and didn't like the fact that the OKPD was honoring people who really weren't deserving of the honor. Sergeant Yakey had told his friends that he was going out of town to hide or secure evidence of a cover-up of the bombing by federal agents. In his last known conversation, Terry reportedly told a friend that he was being followed by the feds and had to shake them. His household had been subjected to numerous threatening phone calls by persons unknown, threats which have not ceased even with his death. Tanya Yakey has moved 5 times in 3 years since the Oklahoma City tragedy. What was it that Terry Yakey found? What was it that he saw that completely destroyed for him the myth that the media then propounded about the OKC bombing? Let's listen to an extended excerpt from that conversation mentioned in that APFN article.
Good morning, Tanya.
Good morning.
Terry was the first officer in the building. He probably saw some things that were dangerous for someone to see and remember and know, and he began working the case. And why don't you just kind of take it to there? What did he tell you?
I picked him up. I got a call about 11:30, maybe 11:15 the morning of the bombing from Presbyterian Hospital. They said Terry had been injured, and I needed to come down there and get him. So I went down there to Presbyterian Hospital, picked him up. His first statement that came out of his mouth was, "Get me out of this hospital. No matter what you got to do, get me out of here." I've been told later that he was threatened the hospital and said, "Tanya, it's not what they're saying it is. They're not telling the truth. They're lying about what's going on down there." After the bombing, he had asked me to take him down to the site. We were stopped, and I can't remember which personnel it was, but I know definitely it was either ATF or FBI. I just cannot recall what the name was on the back of his jacket, but it was one of the two. About 15 days after the bombing happened, I got a call from his supervisor, Lieutenant Joanne Randall. Asked me where Terry was, told her he was not there, And she said, you tell Terry that if he doesn't get that other report in, that he's going to be reprimanded. In this time frame, Terry had written a 9-page report. This is the only report, however, that I've ever asked him to read that he did not let me.
As you look back on that, do you find that as his way of protecting you by making sure that you didn't have that knowledge?
That's what I believe. That is what I believe. At the time, it was strange to me.
People have to understand that when you turn a report in, first thing it does, it goes to your supervisor, then it goes to Records Division, and they make multiple copies for various locations. So to lose the report, the supervisor would have to lose it, or they would have to go to these multiple locations that they know the report's at and get rid of all the reports. Now, they want a second report. That lends me to believe that they want a different report because they've already threatened him by now. Now they say, that's not the report we want. You'll write it, but you'll leave out such and such. That's my theory.
I agree with that.
Let me ask one quick question. Tanya, have you ever told this story before on radio?
Yes, I have.
Oh, you have?
Yes, I have.
Did you have any reaction from it?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've gotten used to it over 2 years. It doesn't seem so new to me anymore.
Did you do this at an Oklahoma City station?
No, I have not.
You mentioned to me that Terry had come to you on probably more than one occasion and said, we need to get remarried so you'll be covered by insurance and pension and all this for the kids?
Yes. It was about 2 weeks after before his death that he suddenly became very afraid. I would not say suicidal, just afraid. He said, we need to get remarried. Don't ask me questions. This is the only way I can make sure you and the girls are taken care of in the event that something happens to me.
But that never happened.
That never happened.
You never got the paperwork, or it was never done.
No.
Okay.
And he did something very strange. He tossed a VCR in my car. Did not explain why. 48 hours later, he was dead. It was the last time I ever saw it.
Now, you said VCR is in a machine or a VHS tape?
No, a VCR machine,
Okay.
an entire machine.
Okay.
The VCR came up missing within 24 hours.
Oh.
It disappeared out of my house. So I was more...
And there you go. There's Tonya Yakey talking with Craig Roberts and Ken Rand about the life and death of Terry Yakey. Let's take a listen to a clip from a very valuable 10-minute YouTube documentary put together by We Are Change Oklahoma under the title We Are Change Oklahoma. What did Sergeant Terrence Yakey know? Now, this is a very valuable documentary that came out earlier this year and also interviews some of Terrence Yakey's family members about their comments about what has been labeled a suicide, but which virtually no one believes was actually a suicide. So let's listen to a short clip from this We Are Change Oklahoma video in which they discuss the scene of Terrence Yakey's death.
Sergeant Yakey had witnessed things during his response to the bombing which did not agree with the official version of events touted by the national media and law enforcement at that time. He was in the process of collecting evidence which supported and documented the inconsistencies he witnessed the morning of the bombing at the scene itself. According to the Yakey family members, Terrence Yakey was to meet a colleague in the restaurant directly behind me the morning of May 8 of 1996. He was to discuss records that he had collected regarding the Oklahoma City bombing, which were stored in a storage facility about an hour's drive north of here. Terrence Yakey never made it to that restaurant in El Reno because on the morning of May 8 of 1996 at 7 a.m., his vehicle was found in a spot just behind me. It is important to note exactly how Yakey is supposed to have killed himself. He was said to have slit his wrists and neck, causing him to nearly bleed to death in his car and then miraculously climb over a barbed wire fence. He then was purported to have walked over 1¼ mile distance through a nearby field, eventually shooting himself in the head at an unusual angle. No weapon was found at the scene of the body. No investigation was conducted. No fingerprints taken, and no interviews with family members or friends were conducted.
So apparently, Sergeant Terrence Yakey slashed himself several times on the forearms and then cut his own throat twice near the jugular vein, then crawled a mile through rough terrain away from his car, which he had the presence of mind to lock after leaving, before shooting himself in the head with a small caliber revolver, somehow along the way managing to get rope burns, or what appeared to be rope burns, on his neck, as well as handcuff bruises on his wrists, muddy grass embedded in his slash wounds, and then somehow managed to dispose of the suicide weapon in a way that it was not found at the scene. It was later found by an FBI investigator after several people had gone over the scene of his death with a fine-tooth comb. Just as Gary Webb could not possibly have shot himself twice in the head, as is alleged by the people who would like to label his death as a suicide and thus sweep under the rug all of the valuable work that he did exposing CIA drug running, so too would they like us to believe that Terrence Yeakey butchered himself and then shot himself in the head and then disposed of the weapon, all in the name of discrediting the very person who could have proven that there was something very wrong with the official story of the OKC bombing. Earlier this week, I had the chance to talk to James Lane of We Are Change Oklahoma. Let's listen to a clip from my interview with James Lane, which of course is available for download in its entirety from CorbettReport.com, in which we talk about the work of We Are Change Oklahoma in continuing to expose the truth about the Oklahoma City bombing in general and the death of Terrence Yeakey in particular.
Well, I'm born and raised here in Oklahoma, and it's always been something that's, obviously when an event like that happens in your home city, you feel, you want to investigate it more. And I think a lot of people may have just turned away from it because it was so horrific and they just wanted to put it behind them. But I wanted to know more about it. And after getting involved with We Are Change, I said, well, We Are Change Oklahoma needs to make the Oklahoma City bombing, I think, the primary focus. Officials of the Clinton administration saying that the only thing that's going to save Obama is another Oklahoma City or 9/11. Those are scary words. You got Bill Clinton running around saying that's what got him reelected. So multiple witnesses. We've got 23 affidavits where people saw Timothy McVeigh with another man. This can't be denied. And the FBI just acts like, well, it didn't happen. It was really difficult to listen to the family, recount the death of their loved one. His sisters they're great ladies and very brave in what they're trying to do.
For anyone who has been involved in this research for any length of time, you will have no doubt encountered the old refrain, "I don't believe in conspiracies because someone would have talked." Well, Gary Webb attempted to talk, and he was suicided. Terrence Yeakey attempted to talk, and he was suicided. Many, many others have also attempted to tell the truth, and they have been disposed of in like manner. I leave today's final words to Terrence Yeakey's own grandmother from the We Are Change Oklahoma video about Terrence Yeakey's death.
There were lies told about everything that happened, and I would like for the world to know that his life was just taken away from him for nothing.